Hi folks, John from Design Elegance Pastry Shop here. How you doing? Hope you're well. I am. So for tonight's lesson, we are going to be making raspberry pretzel rods. We're going to use puff pastry sheets, and we're going to twist them up. We're going to bake some beautiful Danish lake pastries, and then we're going to top them off later on after they come out of the oven. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with you to take care of that. Okay, folks, so to make our raspberry pretzel rods, what we want to do is we're going to use 2 sheets of puff pastry dough. Okay, you should be able to find puff pastry sheets at your grocery store in the frozen aisle, and you should be able to find them right along with what is it called? Phyllo dough, okay, or Danish dough. I'm not talking about biscuits, not the biscuit aisle. We're talking about the frozen doughs, okay, in the dessert section. And you find phyllo dough, which would be made for making the baklava. This is puff pastry dough.
Frozen bread loaves.
What's that? Frozen
Loaves of bread.
Yeah,
they're right over in there too.
Are in the same area probably. So this is the right area. Anyway, we want. For this project, we're using puff pastry sheets. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I have 2 sheets. I've already left them in the refrigerator for about 2 hours after I took them out of the freezer. So they're not frozen solid. They're actually thawed and very easy to work with, but they're yet cold. Okay, and that's very important. You don't want these to get too soft or warm, because then they will be mushy and they will not hold their form properly when you go to work with the dough. So, enough about that. We have our dough ready. It's tempered. We're ready to start our project. So, I'm going to use some raspberry filling, and I'm going to put raspberry filling on one of these sheets. Okay. Now, you don't want to put too much on, because if you put too much on, then the raspberry is just going to pool together and it's going to burn in the oven, and then it's going to make it'll melt right out of your pastry. We don't want to do that, so we're going to just use what we need. Okay. Notice I'm just bringing it right out to the edge, keeping it rather thin. Basically, spreading it about as thin as I possibly can. Alright, there we go. That looks good. Now you can use strawberry or raspberry, or any other fruit for that matter. But you want to make sure that whatever you're using is going to be smooth. You don't want chunks of fruit in this filling. Okay? Just so you know. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is move this like so. And now I'm just going to make a sandwich. And I'm using the separator sheet as leverage. Okay? And now I want to just bring these together like this. Okay? And you can always move it around a little bit if you need to. Pull it back or push it forward a little bit. What you're looking for is for the corners to be all in the same spot. Okay? So your top corners match your bottom corners and your edges are the same. Okay, so now I'm actually going to leave it right on the paper there. Alright, so now I'm going to use my pizza cutter, also known as a pastry wheel. Okay, so now, in my experience, for the size that I'm looking for, with 2 sheets of puff pastry this size, I'm going to get 12 pieces. Okay, one of these sheets is going to make 6 pieces. Now I have 2 sheets, so I'm going to use this as 12 pieces. Okay, Um, first off, I'm going to cut it right in half. There you go. And now I'm going to cut each of these halves into half. And I'm not perfect, but, I try to be. This one's a little bit thinner than this one. Okay, so now I want to take each of these and cut them into fourths, or thirds, rather. Okay. Now, if they're a little bit off, it's okay. It just means that one will be a little smaller than the next.
All right, we don't need a ruler for this, right?
No, not at all.
Just eyeball it.
Yeah, just eyeball it. Okay. Notice I've got some wider ones and some narrower ones. Okay, but I basically got 12 pieces that are almost even. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pan that has a parchment paper on it. I'm going to spray the paper because this is a sticky thing right here. And we don't want the desserts to be sticking to the paper. So I just give it a nice light coat. And now I'm going to take my two biggest ones here, which look to be these two. And I'm just going to twist. Use both fingers, both hands, and twist. Okay, so this one, use right on the end. Okay. I'm going to put my two biggest ones on the ends, because that's the hot spot of the oven. Okay? So there's those two. And now it looks like this one's a pretty big one, so we'll get him out of the way.
Now the hot spot, would that also be true for, say, somebody with a gas oven?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I mean, it would depend on the person's oven.
Okay.
People should know their own oven. If they're at this point. Basically, each oven is different. So you never know.
Well, folks, if it's your first time tuning in, please make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, and please comment with any questions. John is more than happy to answer any questions you've got.
So, notice it's a little sticky on the paper, and that's because of the condensation. Okay? The condensation is making the pastry stick to the paper a little bit. But that's okay, we'll work with it. Okay? Now, one thing I'm trying not to do is give it too many twirls, but I want to give it enough twirls that it's going to, have a nice spiraling effect. Usually 3 or 4 passes is good. And it all depends on how the pastry feels as to whether or not I twirl my right hand or my left hand. See, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, but at the same time here I go 1, 2, and that looks about right. So we put that on. Okay. Alright. Sometimes one end needs another twirl and the other end doesn't, so you just never know. Okay. Now this is a nice wide piece. And I also like to do 2 up at the top. Okay. And again, I'm using the wider ones for that. 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. Right up on top there. Look at that. Perfect. Got room for 2 left. So we got 10 along the bottom and 2 across the top. Okay. This can be a little messy, but that's part of the fun. Nothing wrong with that.
There are messier things you've had to contend with, too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We're not like, pulling the mic row or anything, but this can be fun. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now, Like that. Give my fingers a quick little wipe on the bag here. Okay, so now I have all 12 pieces all twisted and laid out. Now what I want to do next is egg wash them. Okay, I'm just going to use the whole egg, and I'm going to add just a touch of water. Just a little bit. Not much. Basically that thins it out a little bit. What I'm looking for here is color. Okay? I want a nice golden color on the top of my pastry. So I'm going to just make a little simple egg wash. That's what this is. Now sometimes it's just an egg white that I would want to use, like if it were for arugula. And then sometimes I just want the yolk mixed with water, if I were going to do like maybe turnovers or something like that. But for this, I like to use the whole egg and just add a little bit of water. Okay, so now you want to hit each of the top surfaces of these guys. And this is where you kind of need to be a little patient, okay? Especially when the filling starts to ooze out on the side. Okay. I'm talking about right there. Okay, so you want to kind of go around that. You don't want that all over the brush because then it's going to be on as a pastry after. So we're just going to patiently do all these little sections. Okay. Now when we bake these, typically speaking, you'll notice from my videos that I like to bake at about 340 degrees or 290 in my convection oven. We're going to turn the oven up a little bit for these guys, though. So you're going to want to go about an extra 15 to 20 degrees hotter. Okay? So keep that in mind when you turn your oven on. And then, of course, just like with everything else, we're going to bake them halfway, well, about 2/3 of the way on the one side, and then about the other third of the way on the other side after we turn them 180 degrees. So, this one here. You'll notice that, sometimes the ends will flop back over. It's okay. You can always just stick it back like so.
At least.
The main thing is you want to keep them all. Now, theoretically speaking, what I mean by that is, if you have a wider one, okay, these actually should be stretched a little more, so that they're about as wide as these narrow ones here, and that will help them bake evenly. But we have the big ones in the hot spots, so hopefully that issue will be taken care of already with that. Okay, almost done here. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing next is taking a quick little break so that we can let the oven heat up. And then we're going to be right back to put them in the oven. And we will bake them. So, give us a few minutes to get the oven ready. We'll be right back.
And cut.